So it's day 11 of 21 days of wellness with the wellness professor, Leo Simpson II. And I tell you, I'm excited to be here with you, especially because of what I'm going to talk to you about today. Eh, I'm always excited to talk to you about something simply because it's wellness. It's bringing you wellness. We trying to eliminate your weakness and replace it with wellness. What do your weaknesses look like? In the very context of chaos, frustration, and confusion. And I told you, if you've been paying attention, I try to keep that light showing because that light don't go out. I got to be able to get that extra covered in, put it. Okay, all right, let's get off that's levity. That's levity. Well, I had a wonderful experience today, getting ready for the training or getting ready for the weekend that we do in the prison in my local area. Well, not necessarily local, but in the prison that I serve with in the TDCJ system. And, it was some things that I was thinking about with regard to wellness, because what we do in the context of our work with Kairos is we literally go into this environment for a weekend and help to shift a number of guys who are selected for this weekend, shift their perspective of life, and therefore really, do what I do as a professional, which is replace chaos, frustration, and confusion in their life with wellness. We bring them a wellness experience of just an expression and overflow of listening, loving, giving regard for them and to them at the highest level. To be honest, we have seen people experience dramatic shifts. I'll give you an example. There's one guy in one of our past events, weekends, that this guy was a hardcore criminal, had actually murdered, a number of people. One of the people he murdered was a police officer, law enforcement personnel, and he had no remorse about it, didn't really care about it. And he found himself coming face to face with literally grieving, having taken those actions and understanding the true reality of it, and feeling like there was no possibility for him to be forgiven because of how evil he was. Like, these are his words. Like, man, I was bad. Man, I was evil, And when he came face to face with the reality that he could be free from the guilt, and though there's reality of his actions, but be free from the weight of that situation, to where he doesn't carry that burden anymore. Like, and that somebody would look at him not for what he did, but for who he was and who he was capable of being, not judge him for his foolish decision, but for the potential that was lying dormant in him. He was like, what is this? And I tell you, to think about my man today and where he is, like, it fuels me for the work that I do and helping to bring wellness to people, help to replace chaos, frustration, and confusion in work, life, work, family, and identity with wellness. And so, what I want to share today in this segment that I'm doing is how three powerful words can dramatically shift wellness. And when I talk about these three words, I want to talk about not just how they can shift wellness in the sense of you achieving wellness, moving in the context of wellness, but also they shift wellness in the position of that you can miss out on wellness. You can lose wellness. You can end up inundating yourself in the very fullness of weakness. And so, let me tell you what these three words are. But in order to tell you what these three words are, I want to share with you more so like how I discovered the reality of the power of these three words. When I was growing up, my dad was the type of guy that, like, he would tell you where he was, he'd tell you what his position was, and the looks on his face would also tell you some things too. And so if you asked about something, especially if you asked about something frequently, he would let you know, not just with his words, but with his facial expressions, you would know whether or not this is something you should be asking my father. My dad, he wasn't the person to play with. If he let you know, don't you ask me nothing no more, you better not ask him. So as a child, what we do is we see what we like, we see what we think, we see what we desire, and we ask. Especially if it's something we really desire, whether we know it's good or not, we gonna ask. We gonna ask about it. Well, I decided not to ask my father some things. Let me tell you why. Because I asked my father things, over a period of time, and I would see how he would respond. And ultimately, I was like, I know how my man's going to respond, so I'm not even going to bring it up. And what I developed was, unnecessarily and unfortunately, I developed this habit of not going to my father and asking him things that I really should have been asking, right? And let me explain what I'm saying here. Parents, let me throw this in. Parents, be very thoughtful about how you respond to not only your children, but to other children as well, but specifically your children within the context of them asking, because there needs to be an appropriate and healthy manner of asking that exists within the context of children while they're children, because they're learning how to learn what needs to be asked for, when it needs to be asked for, and how it needs to be asked, all those types of things. So when we position kids to think that they can't ask, we actually, more than anything, close ourselves off to them to where they feel like they have no access to us. That's an inappropriate way of looking at it, but that's how kids process it, because they look at the inability to access with their questions as a means of being rejected. And not all kids think that way, but it's more of a median to a majority, okay? And so I had to learn that myself, to be very careful with my daughters. I kind of learned the hard way to a degree with my oldest, not so much with my youngest. And so what you got to understand is, when I asked those questions and I started to kind of build data and be like, oh, I already see it. I already know how my dad is, so I'm not even going to ask. Like, even people like, man, go ask your dad. No, I ain't asking. I ain't asking. Why? Because I already know, right? Well, that what I said about what parents need to make sure they are careful about, it happened to me. And I got to the point to where, like I said, when I should go to them, or specifically to my father, I wouldn't. And it wasn't just I wouldn't go to my father. It's like how my father dealt with me would make me not even want to go to my mother. So I developed pride in a very deep manner to where I could fix this stuff on my own. And guess what? When I really should have been going to my father and used these 3 powerful words, I wouldn't. What are those 3 powerful words? I need help. I need help. Now, you can say you need help through a form of a question, through, expressing confusion, frustration, chaos, etc. But let me say this. Saying the words, first and foremost, within your own mind, saying, man, I need help. It's powerful. It's powerful. Now, I did a post recently, and one of the things I said is, these 3 words, simple words, but these words are some of the most difficult to say, and often by not using these 3 simple but powerful words, we seriously sabotage ourselves. Absolutely. See, I remember I said I want to talk about it from the wellness standpoint of how you can achieve wellness and get wellness, and how important and valuable it is to wellness, but also how it can actually go the opposite direction. When we fail to first and foremost within our own selves, when we fail to first and foremost within our own minds, when we fail to first and foremost in our own thinking, in our own believing, to influence our own emotions, utilize the words, the phrases, these three simple but powerful words, I need help. First and foremost to ourselves, we literally become a self-sabotaging influence upon ourselves. And I can't tell you how much I created self-sabotage for myself. Man, I'm not even going to go down the 10 plus years of self-sabotage I created for myself. That's exactly why I'm in the position to where I'm like, oh no, we gonna bring some wellness to people. I know what chaos looks like. I know what frustration looks like. I know what confusion looks like in work, in family, and identity. And I know how to replace it with wellness. I know how to identify it. I know how to key in on it. And I was like, no, I'm gonna tell my story. Why? Because I know there's some other people out there that need help that are not saying I need help, but I'm going to go out there and tell them, hey, I know you need help. I'm here to help you. So go ahead and tell yourself I need help so you can activate your connection with the help that's out there and available to you. Pride is the most self-sabotaging aspect that we could imagine. It's self-sabotaging. And it comes in the form of inhibiting us in using these three powerful words that can dramatically shift our wellness. Here's what I mean. If we are willing to honestly say, I need help, first and foremost within ourselves, to ourselves, we put ourselves on the trajectory to achieve the wellness that is possible for us. However, if we see in the context of our situation, circumstance, strategy, experience, that we need help, but we are unwilling to first and foremost communicate that to ourselves, to be honest with ourselves and confess within ourselves, man, I need help. Man, I need some help. I'm good with saying I need some help. If we're not willing to do that, then what we're really doing is we're moving ourselves further and further and further away from the wellness that is possible for us. And you got to remember this. We talked about it in one of the days that wellness is the intangible, mindful aspect of our existence, and wealth is the tangible, measurable aspect of our existence. And when you achieve wellness, it positions you to then see the manifested, observable benefits and realities and rewards of wealth. It shows up. Yes, it shows up. But when we don't activate our wellness with these three simple but powerful words, what we are doing is self-sabotaging. But it's worse. There's another aspect of these three powerful words that can shift wellness. Here's how. Let me read a perspective, a very wise saying from one of the most wise people to ever live. I talk about him a lot. Multi-billionaire Solomon. Watch this. Solomon said, whoever shuts up his ears to the cry of the poor will also cry himself and not be heard. Now, I've shared with you a defining perspective of what it means by poor, what the perspective that is being communicated there. What's being communicated is someone who has a need, of course, but they cannot do for themselves and cannot do back for you, right? And what I mean is do back for you. They can't return you exactly what they gave you. I'll give you an example. There's two ways you want to look at it. So a person can be poor when they literally don't have money to pay you. They don't have the ability to give you any type of substance or anything like that. And so let's say somebody's hungry, you give them food, they can't pay you for the food. Somebody's need clothes and you give them clothes, they can't pay you for the clothes. That's one way that they cannot do back for you, but they also can't do for themselves. But watch this. There's also an element where, even in a commercial sense, where this person has this problem, right? And you have this solution, and they can't solve this problem. I'll give you a perfect example. I used to work in the HVAC industry, worked in the field at some point, and then I worked also on the back end, actually running an HVAC company. And one of the things that I noticed is there were people, for example, who were engineers, people who were, multi-millionaires, people who, worked for oil and gas companies as far as our client base, people who were educators, different ranges of people. And these people, listen to me carefully, these people, they could not fix their air conditioning and heating problems. So they call us, right? So you call us, they can pay us to actually do the work and get the supplies and all that kind of stuff. But they couldn't do back for us what we did for them. They couldn't come and replace our air conditioners or fix our air conditioners, replace a component or a part or something. They couldn't do that. And so technically those people are poor. That's a different level of poor. But what it means is they have a lack or a void. So there is some layer there within the context of meeting the needs of those who cannot do for themselves and cannot do back for you, do back to you, right? More specifically, you want to focus on the ones who literally are vulnerable completely, right? Or are in a very destitute type of situation is what this is talking about, but it does have this range, okay? Okay, let me get back to it because I need to get off my podium here very soon. So whoever shuts up his eyes to the cry of the poor will also himself cry and not be heard. Now, in other words, what this is saying in simple is when someone needs help, don't ignore them, especially if you don't want to be ignored yourself, which means not just not using the words "I need help" is self-sabotaging. Ignoring someone who uses the words "I need help" or ignoring the very clear demonstration and representation that someone needs help and we can help them is worse than self-sabotaging. And when you do that, you also move yourself way away from wellness into a place of deafening weakness, deafening chaos, deafening frustration, deafening confusion. There's another statement that this wise multi-billionaire said. He said, whoever gives to the poor, whoever gives to the one who cannot do for themselves and cannot do back for you, whoever gives to that person shall not lack. What does that mean? That means that you can work hard all your life. You can do well. You can be a great salesperson. But if you want to position yourself to never lack anything, you need to make sure you have a regular, consistent practice of compassionate generosity where you are consistently meeting the needs of those who cannot help themselves and cannot do back for you. Hey, what are you saying? Multi-billionaire. He might have even been a trillionaire in the terms of today's money. Multi-billionaire. These three powerful words. Let me tell you what you need to understand about them. One, become comfortable using these three words. I need help. First and foremost with yourselves, but also making sure you identify the right people to be able to use those words with outside of yourself. But then the last thing I want to make sure you know, while you get comfortable using those three words yourself, make sure you do not become comfortable not hearing those three words from others. Because not hearing those three words, closing your ears off, acting like you don't hear those three words, I need help from other people, literally can put you in a position to where you do something to yourself that is worse than self-sabotage. These three words, these three simple and profoundly powerful words, I need help, can dramatically shift our wellness. One, it shifts the quality, the capacity of our wellness achievement, while also, if not dealt with appropriately, can really disturb the wellness, which means therefore the wealth that we experience. I said this in one of my past lives. I said our experience in our world, especially in America, where we're dealing with record inflation, record economic unrest, record income struggles. I mean, one of the highest national debts ever, issues with the benefits of our currency and all sorts of things, political unrest, various different things. Let me tell you what it's connected with. It's connected with our wellness lack. The truth is, we lack wellness. While we may have what we call wealth generation, we really don't have wealth generation at the extent that we really need it, because the manner in which our economy is volatile, especially connected with the debt of our nation, puts us in a position to where we're operating in a perception of wealth and not an actuality of wealth. Big difference. Perception of wealth versus an actuality of wealth, right? I mean, I got an accounting background, and let's just do simple accounting. If you spend more than what you actually have, you're at a loss. That's not wealth. Just saying. So if we really, as a nation, and in many instances, some of the countries, many of the countries around the world, are spending more than what we actually have, therefore are at a loss. A loss is connected with a lack, and lack is connected with weakness, which is the direct opposite of wellness. I can see why there is unrest in family, there's unrest in marriage, unrest in parenting, unrest in businesses, unrest in family relationships that are on the extended level. I can see why it is. I can see why businesses are doing well in some regards and then not in other regards, and then people are selfish and not know they're being selfish and wish they could actually be more generous. Oh man, it's just crazy. Why? How many people are actually saying to themselves these three words? Truly, I need help. I need help with my wellness because I have confusion, chaos, frustration that I really can't get rid of. Let me say this as I get off my podium. I am learning even more how important it is to accelerate our growth, accelerate your experience of growth and development, accelerate the experience and achievement of wellness by actually going to the wealth of wise wellness perspective that is predictable and has been predictable before me. Absolutely. And here's the truth. Many of the reasons why we are in the states that we are in our society is because we are acting as though we have wellness, when we really don't have the wellness we really can achieve, and that is possible. And because we won't be honest, because we will not completely be transparent first and foremost with ourselves, we're not able to really get all the value that we really have, that's really available to us. Wellness is pivotal. But there are three words that are going to position you to experience wellness at the highest level. I need help. Use those words confidently, yet vulnerably with yourself. Use them confidently, vulnerably with the right people outside of yourself. And make sure when others use those three powerful but simple words vulnerably and confidently, you don't close your eyes to them. And that would be a dramatic shift in an exponential way with regard to your wellness, others' wellness, and all wellness. You be well. As I often say, be great. You hear me now?